Imagine standing on the edge of a world where silence reigns, where the air itself feels like shards of glass slicing into your lungs. The sun barely rises, casting a pale, ghostly glow over an endless white expanse. Each breath is a labor, a reminder of the freezing winds that bite at your face as the ground beneath your boots crunches and shifts, concealing the secrets of those lost to time. Tonight, we are looking at a story of ambition and desperation, a tale that unfolded amongst the frozen desolation of the Arctic. In 1850, the crew of the HMS Investigator, led by Captain Robert McClure, ventured into these treacherous waters with dreams of discovering the Northwest Passage. What should have been a triumphant exploration quickly spiraled into a fight for survival against an unforgiving foe, as the Arctic's icy grasp tightened around them. The vast white wilderness seemed to beckon them forward with promises of glory, yet its true nature hid behind a veil of beauty. With each passing day, the crew's dreams turned to nightmares beneath the oppressive weight of the ice. The air was thick with tension, mingled with the acrid scent of burnt wood from makeshift fires intended to stave off the relentless cold. Isolation loomed large, each man knowing they were trapped in a frozen realm, where hope flickered like a single candle in a gale. As the ever-present ice enveloped their ship and their hearts, friendships frayed and sanity wavered. Here, amidst the merciless chill, the spectre of death moved among them, a ghost trailing behind young sailors and seasoned officers alike. Their struggle became a portrait of humanity against nature, revealing the fragile line between courage and despair. McClure himself felt it, the weight of leadership resting heavy on his shoulders, each decision a gamble with fate. He could hear the murmurs among his men, the unspoken fears that cast shadows over their spirits. "We are not gods," one of them would say quietly in the flickering candlelight. "We are just men, fighting against the impossible." As the ice thickened and the months dragged on, supplies dwindled, morale faltered, and one chilling fact remained: the Arctic would not yield. In this relentless environment, the sun would shun them, and the endless expanse would remind them of their isolation. The weight of desperation grew heavier with each frozen landscape they traversed. Join us as we uncover this haunting expedition, where dreams of discovery turned into a fight for survival. Witness the harrowing truths of the McClure Arctic Expedition, where the cold was merely an introduction to the darkness the crew would face. Frozen in time, the McClure Arctic Expedition. Chapter 1. Setting Sail, the Quest for the Northwest Passage. In May of 1850, the air is thick with anticipation and the salty tang of the sea. This is a time when the world is still stitched together by myths and the edges of uncharted waters. Captain Robert McClure stands on the deck of the HMS Investigator, his eyes scanning the horizon. Behind him, the sound of sailors bustling about fills the air, chatter mixing with the creaking of wood against the saltwater swells. The expedition is shrouded in the electric energy typical of grand adventures. Men move with purpose, hope simmering just below the surface, but the enormity of the ice-laden waters weighs heavily on each heart. "Do you think we'll find it, sir?" a young seaman asks, his voice laced with both eagerness and doubt. McClure straightens, his resolve hardening. "We shall find our passage, or we shall make one." As the ship slips from the docks of Woolwich, the cool, crisp air dances against their faces. It stings like needles, but the crew welcomes it, kissing away the staleness of land. Each deep breath is a reminder that they are venturing into the unknown, where the sun barely rises, and the icy waters threaten to swallow them whole. The midnight sun illuminates their journey. It is a flicker of warmth in a bleak expanse, a shimmering promise that holds more fear than joy. Thousands have tried to carve a path through the Northwest Passage, traditional routes choked by the relentless ice. McClure's mission, backed by the British Admiralty, is both audacious and foolhardy. It is a test of men and metal against the grip of nature. "Get ready the sails," commands McClure, his voice slicing through the cold air. The crew jumps into action, trusting their captain, their fears buried under layers of thick wool and bravado. But nothing truly prepares them for the Arctic's unforgiving spell. The wind howls like a banshee, icy fingers creeping into their bones as the temperatures plummet. Here, the sea breathes cold, a navigating nightmare. Days turn to weeks. With each sunrise, spirits sway, rising with the sun and falling with the biting night. Morale sinks amidst relentless frost. "We've lost our way," mutters First Mate William Ules one evening, fury bubbling under his breath. They huddle together in the dim light of the ship's cabin, worn out and bones aching, the shadows casting eerie shapes against the wooden walls. "Speak not of such things, Mr. Ules," McClure responds, his voice steady, yet a flicker of uncertainty sneaks into his tone. "We are explorers. We must find our strength in adversity." But even McClure feels the creeping sense of dread. Reports from the world outside are troubling. Whispers of starvation, death in the ice, and ships lost to the depths haunt his thoughts. As storms lash against their vessel, the seas turn from welcoming azure to a threatening cobalt. A malevolent darkness swells beneath them, clawing and slapping against the hull. With every sway of the ship, hope slips further into the void. Late one night, after a feast of meager rations, a chill runs through the cabin. The men retell stories. Some are legends of explorers gone missing, others shivering tales of impossible chances. Laughter mingles with trepidation, but as the wind shrieks, even the bravest feel their hearts begin to quiver. "We are not here for tales," McClure claps, grounding the flickering whimsy with authority. "We are here to pave a way through hell if we must." Ules leans back in his chair, eyeing the captain. "Aye, but hell doesn't take kindly to those who invade its man-made fortress." The night wears on, filled with the distant howl of the wind and the crackle of torches. The ship rocks gently, a lullaby wrapping around tired bones, but like all lullabies, it won't last. Here in the heart of the Arctic, the dark is alive and watching. Something stirs beneath the surface, unseen. Days blend into an indefinable haze. The sun barely breaks the clouds, and the darkness seems to seep in, curling around them like a malevolent spirit. Hope flickers like a guttering flame, and a heavy sense of isolation seeps into their bones. The crew begins to whisper of bad omens, of ghosts lost to the ice. With dwindling supplies, the expedition's journey morphs from daring to desperate. The ships are not merely vessels of brass and wood. They echo with the weight of burdensome dreams. Each man succumbs to the gnawing fear. "We should turn back," suggests a cabin boy one afternoon, his voice barely above a whisper. He shifts nervously, a cracking lip betraying his fevered condition. The coughs that linger in the corners of the ship are alarming. More than mere ailments, they are portents. "Back to what?" McClure snaps, an edge to his voice betraying his growing agitation. "A life in ignorance. We must push forward." But deep within, trepidation gnaws at him. He stares out into the endless white, the Arctic breeze biting sharply. He knows the cold is unrelenting, knowing it feeds on weakness and hesitation, like a predator scents blood. What if the passage is not there? What if we are merely chasing shadows? Ules confronts, still, tense, yet his gaze softens. He is torn between loyalty and reason. "We are not the first to fail," McClure replies, conviction rising against the uncertainty. "And we won't be the last, but I'll be damned if we fall before we find our way." As night engulfs them, the ship drifts further into a frozen void that seems boundless. The temperature has dropped to -40. The ink in their journals has frozen solid, the parchment begging for words of meaning, yet finding only melancholy scrawls. Looming above them, the vast Arctic sky reveals its secrets in teeming flashes. The stars gleam like cold fire, teasing yet avoiding their dreams. Silence fills the air, acrid with moisture and despair. Then it happens. A faint crack, like the snapping of a twig, echoes in the heavens. A fragment of ice, a hint of danger looming ahead. The crew steel themselves, the gravity of it sinking deep into their bones. "What lies ahead?" whispers Ules, voicing what everyone feels but cannot say. "Only the unknown," McClure murmurs, gripping the wheel, the earlier bravado suddenly fragile. The HMS Investigator is but a fragile thing in a realm of ice, marching forward into the dark abyss, and the shadows watch as they enter the heart of winter's moor, a place where hope and horror entwine, slowly converging on the crew bound to the ice. Before we descend further into the dark, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. You won't want to face the rest of this journey alone. And before we continue, drop a comment and tell me where in the world you are watching from tonight. Knowing you are out there, somewhere in the dark, makes this history feel all the more alive. Chapter 2, The Thrumming Ice, Initial Success and Early Challenges. The dawn breaks cold and bright, casting a harsh light over the Arctic expanse. McClure stands at the bow of the HMS Investigator, the biting wind snatching at his leather coat. There's a thrill in the air, a whisper of triumph lacing through the crew as they slip through the Barrow Strait. "We're carving history," he murmurs, more to himself than anyone nearby. The men are restless, giddy with a mix of fear and a newfound sense of purpose. A few shout commands, their voices cutting through the sharpness of the morning. The ship groans underfoot as it sails smoothly over hardy ice. Here, the ocean can open up. Here, they feel they have entered an untamed realm where few have dared to tread. The sun glints off the icebergs, transforming their jagged outlines into glittering needles piercing the deep blue. It feels alive, formidable yet inviting. "Look at that," one sailor exclaims, pointing at a spire rising above the water. There's laughter, the kind that echoes in the cold air, but beneath it lurks the knowledge that they are still spectators of a cold, indifferent world. The temperature is chilling, but the crew moves with purpose. They've come prepared, or so they believe. Supplies are abundant, and the smell of salted fish wafts through the small galley. Yet, as they delve deeper, a subtler, more ominous scent begins to thread through the crisp air, the kind of scent that signals something dark lurking just out of sight. On board, conversations ebb and flow, like the waves hitting the ship's hull. "Do you think there's real treasure to be found?" one crewman asks, his eyes gleaming with dreams. Another scoffs, "We're here for glory, not gold." Such words feel hollow when the vastness of the ice looms above them, fragile yet foreboding. But bustling excitement soon gives way to uncertainty. McClure scans the horizon, noticing a murky silhouette rolling in. A bank of clouds, thick and brooding, hovers like a predator. "Secure the sails!" he barks, urgency threading his voice. A crewman stumbles, but rights himself, determination layering over fear. The thrill of conquest shifts to a whisper of dread. As the wind picks up, it howls through the rigging, an eerie wailing that mingles with hushed murmurs of concern. Soon, snowflakes tumble down, their descent slow, almost mocking. The men tighten their jackets as the air grows heavier, the chill sinking deep into their bones. A whispering unease hangs among them. "Do you feel that?" One man grips the rail, his pulse quickening. "The ice, it's shifting. The Barrow Strait is treacherous, capricious. It seems to beckon them, then threaten to swallow them whole." The investigator creaks and groans with each wave of pressure against the hull. "Stay steady," McClure commands, though he can feel the tremor in his own hands. As if the weather answers in kind, a gale erupts, a brutal reminder that they are mere intruders in this frozen empire. The once familiar routine aboard the Investigator morphs into chaos. Men scramble, their faces taut with fear and excitement as the first ice trap ensnares their ship. "Lower the anchor," the command feels swallowed by the whipping winds. It's almost a desperate plea now. The ship lunges, restless against the raw fury of the sea. Tension builds, an uninvited tension that gnaws at their morale. "We're not getting out of this one easily," mutters a sailor, eyes wide. Panic is a quiet thing at first. an undercurrent against the bravado. They're in uncharted territory, and every man feels the weight of that statement pressing down on them. A man stumbles hard onto the deck, his boot turning crimson as the splintered wood bites into him. "Bandages now," McClure shouts, feeling a creeping dread settle in the pit of his stomach. The cut isn't deep, but the reality is there. All around them, the ice is whispering, an unseen hand, clutching at the vessel with a cold grip. The strangest thing strikes McClure then. A part of him is exhilarated. This is what they signed up for. Adventure, unknowns, a dance on the edge of peril. Yet, as the storm intensifies, he knows this is no mere folly. He rakes a hand through his hair, frustration swirling within him. The excitement is fading, being replaced by something darker. Beyond the ship's rail, a thunderous crack echoes through the strait. The crew freezes. "What was that?" someone breathes. The question a shared dread. The fear in each man's eyes deepens. They turn their gaze to the ice, fractured, restless. Through the blinding flurries, the icebergs shift uncomfortably, groaning under immense pressure. "Look there," a man points, eyes wide. McClure's heart sinks. A massive sheet of ice, willful and precarious, starts to split, like a rift forming in reality itself. "Row, lads!" he roars over the din, desperation translating into raw command. The oars dip and stab into the frigid water, muscles straining, breaths coming fast. They pull. They wrestle against fate, each stroke mingled with the spectre of failure lurking behind every frantic movement. The ice closes in on them. The claustrophobia of it all grips McClure tighter than his coat. "Come on, one more push. We're pulling." But the ice does not relent. The world becomes a cacophony of wood splintering and men shouting. Fear mixes with that icy wind. As the waves slam against the hull, the ship feels small, fragile. Each sound, the crack, the groan, bears the weight of an impending disaster. Just then, a defeatist whisper rises amidst the chaos. "We're gonna die out here." McClure grapples with the morbid thought. Stories of doomed expeditions flash through his mind, horror tales frozen in time, echoing through the chilled air. In that moment, as the crew fights against the storm, and the ice recalls its ancient hold, a solitary thought snakes its way into his mind. What if this is only the beginning? What if their initial success births an insatiable nightmare? The investigator shudders violently, and the howling wind carries their fear into the howling abyss of the Arctic night. He grits his teeth. They cannot break now. They will not yield. But as ice shifts ominously, a dreadful realization reddens the edges of his certainty. They have crossed a threshold. The question hangs in the air. Where will this path lead them? What horrors lie in wait beneath this thrumming ice? Without answers, they must journey deeper into a world that promises both discovery and dread. Chapter 3. Bound by Ice, Becoming Icebound. The investigator creaks like a weary old man as it settles into the relentless grasp of the Arctic pack ice. Above, the sky is an unforgiving grey, heavy and pregnant with the promise of snow. It envelops the ship, a shroud of frost that turns every breath into a visible cloud. The crew watches helplessly as the ice cradles their ship tighter. Each snap of shifting ice sends a chill through their bones. "It won't break loose now," whispers Henry, a young sailor, his voice barely cutting through the biting wind. McClure turns away from the sight, his stomach tight with the weight of realization. "Prepare the provisions," McClure commands, a steadiness masking the worry gnawing at him. "We must make ready for the winter." His tone is firm, resolute, but inside, doubt simmers like the chill of the sea. As the sun dips below the horizon, shadows stretch like fingers across the ice. The biting cold creeps into their clothes, into their souls, every man now feeling the weight of isolation. It is not just the temperature that drops, it is their spirits too. On deck, the air smells of brine and dread. Men scrape away at supplies, organizing dwindling rations with trembling hands. "Scurvy will take us if we're not careful," mutters Lewis, eyes scanning the barrels. Their fate now hinges on careful management, on a silent pact of survival. Inside the ship, remnants of warmth cling to the wood, but the chill is pervasive. Each crewmate huddles in small groups, whispering quiet fears. "Do you think we'll see land again?" asks Cook, eyes wide with unspoken terror. No one meets his gaze. They can't bear the silence, that question hanging like a sword over them. Days stretch into one long, brutal march of darkness. They count hours by the glow of lanterns, flickering like their fading hope. Ice clinks against the hull, a reminder of their prison. Outside, the wind howls, a mournful dirge, resonating through the ship, tugging at the edges of their sanity. As the bitter chill deepens, the men turn to one another. "Remember that time we thought we'd get to the North Pole?" John laughs, but it sounds hollow, echoing through the icebound walls. He looks around at his crewmates, eyes darting nervously. Now it feels more like the bottom of hell. Chuckles ripple through the crew, but soon die down, replaced by the heavy weight of despair. Each man feels the encroaching frost of isolation. McClure steps closer, burdened. He chooses to focus on what little warmth remains, something to cling to. Let's make the best of our time here. Lessons to discover, even in this frozen cage. Days turn to weeks, and the inevitable sets in, a gnawing hunger that sinks deeper than the frost. Their supplies dwindle like the last light of day. The last of the fresh meat is long gone. The salted provisions barely hold out. A foul smell begins to seep from the ship, a grim reminder that without fresh food, they are racing against Mother Nature's clock. On the 50th day, a crisp frost bites at the windows as men gather around the dwindling hearth. Icy air fills the corners, creeping into flesh and spirit. "Ice isn't going to yield to us," whispers one, a dark thought brewing in his heart. "But we've made it out here before." Jones shakes his head, anxiety pooling in his eyes. "We can't let it take us." The words echo with a courage far removed from their reality. Outside, the world is different. No longer the promising exploration they dreamed of, but a barren, ice-covered wasteland stretching endlessly. Between icebergs, they watch the sun rise, pale and weak against the frigid landscape, while they huddle together like frightened animals. "Let's gather wood for sledges," McClure suggests, a desperate plan forming. "We may need to travel." "Travel?" Smythe retorts, voice rising with disbelief. "Where?" "Anywhere but here," McClure replies, the darkness of his thoughts creeping into those words. What lies beyond their frozen encasement? Adventure, or more despair? There is a long silence, punctuated only by the wind howling its mournful song. Outside, ice forms a solid barrier, a frozen tomb that seals them in. As weeks wear thin, gloom seeps into the crevices of the investigator. Morale plummets, and the scent of desperation fills the air like a foul smoke. Safe in their ship, they are not safe at all. In the dim light of the cabin, a brainstorm is brewing. "What if we go on? Foot?" Henry suggests, voice trembling. "Maybe we can reach land before the worst sets in." "Fools talk," grumbles one old sailor. "We'll die out there." But whispers of dissent brew beneath, a murmuring tide of fear sparking ideas. How much longer can they lean on hope? Night falls over the ice, heavy and claustrophobic. Each man breathes in the sharp tang of despair, clinging to fragments of warmth. A jug of rum circulates, a brief respite from their plight. "Tomorrow, we venture to break free from this cold hell," McClure declares, rallying his men. "Survival depends on it." But even as he speaks, uncertainty laces his voice. That night, sleep eludes them. Instead, they lie awake, listening to the ice shifting, moaning, whispering secrets of the deep. Shadows dance around them, predators and prey entwined in the dark. Days blend into one another, but the bitter bite of the Arctic does not relent. Each day feels increasingly hopeless. As the temperature plunges further, frost grips their souls. On the 57th day, Henry approaches McClure again. "What if we don't make it out?" he asks, voice quiet, almost pleading. "What if this is it?" McClure meets his gaze, a chill creeping up his spine. He knows the truth. The endless ice has become a mirror, reflecting their worst fears. They are lost. In a moment of shared dread, a flash of determination ignites within McClure. "Then we fight to the last," he replies, his voice firm, eyes hardened by resolve. "We will not rest until this ice releases us." But deep down, uncertainty gnaws at him, a creeping shadow that threatens to overwhelm. What if the ice has plans for them that they cannot fathom? As darkness swallows the ship once more, a freezing gust slams against the hull. It brings with it an echo, a sound that seems to call their names. "Can you hear that?" one whispers, eyes wide, the air thick with anticipation. McClure cocks his head, straining to listen. It sounds like hope, or perhaps a warning. What lies ahead? The crew's fate hangs in the balance, coiled like a serpent ready to strike. They can sense the shift. The ice is angry, restless, and out there in the abyss, beyond the whispered fears, they sense it. Something is coming for them. What will it be? Closer or farther from salvation? They are bound by ice, becoming icebound, and their true test is just beginning. Chapter 4. Enduring the cold, the longest winter. The sun barely skims the horizon, casting a faint glow over the frozen landscape. Daylight slips away faster than it arrives, leaving the crew in a twilight realm that feels eternal. Cold bites at exposed skin, merciless as it seeps into the bones. Each breath is a sharp reminder of their predicament. Inside the makeshift quarters, the air is thick with the smell of damp wool and sweat. The flickering flame from a sputtering oil lamp barely holds back the encroaching darkness. "Another day, another fight for warmth," whispers John, a tall, burly sailor, as he rubs his hands together, trying to coax feeling back into his fingers. "Keep your ears open tonight," warns Thomas, his voice trembling slightly. "I heard the ice cracking. We're trapped here. The damn ice is growing restless." His gaze darts toward the walls, as if expecting the frozen exterior to collapse in on them. The temperature drops to -40. Ink freezes solid in their journals. Each stroke of the quill is a struggle. Scratching against the paper feels like an act of defiance. But they write. They write to document their days, their dwindling supplies, and the creeping dread gnawing at their minds. Breakfast is a meager affair. Hardtack and a thin broth that seems more water than sustenance. Men gather around the pot, their faces gaunt and etched with worry. "No more fresh food to share, lads," says the cook, his voice hollow. "It's just this now, unless we want to start eating each other." A grim chuckle follows, though the laugh dies quickly. It isn't funny anymore. Outside, the winds howl like tormented spirits. Snow whips across the ice, a frigid ghost that clings to their garments, turning them into frigid shells of themselves. The weight of their reality presses down. Limited supplies, no means of communication with the outside world, and the frost lingering like a predator waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. "Keep moving," Captain McClure barks, his voice sharp, cutting through the fog of despair. Exhaustion hangs heavy on them, but they obey. They have learned that defiance brings only suffering. Men shuffle outside, pulling the sledges loaded with fragments of their hopes, traps to catch game, tools to fend off the elements. Fingers numb from the biting cold, they set to work each day, building makeshift tents for hunting when the storms allow. Each gust of wind feels like a reminder. They are at the mercy of the Arctic, one misstep away from total collapse. Isolation gnaws at their sanity. Accusations bubble beneath the surface, small grievances igniting like tinder on an open flame. "You're hoarding the matches," one man snaps at another, eyes wide with suspicion. "Next thing we know, you'll be hiding food." Trust becomes a scarce commodity as their rations dwindle. At night, they huddle in their shelter. Whispers dance in the darkness. "Scurvy's setting in," murmurs Henry, his voice a low rasp, the harsh truth lingering like a bitter aftertaste. "The lemons are gone. We can feel it, the bleeding gums, the weakness." "No doom and gloom tonight," snaps John, fingers clenched into fists. "We survive together, or we die like fools apart." Silence falls, though the weight of his words settles heavily, looming. The cold is relentless, a living thing that feasts on their will. Each day stretches into the next, a monotonous cycle of struggle. They cling to routine, guard duty, hunting, rationing supplies. But the dull ache of desperation lingers, tainting every moment. A crack fills the air, sharp and sudden, like splintering wood. Heavy boots stamp down on the snow. Hearts leap into throats. "The ice!" Thomas shouts, terror breaking free. "Get back! Get back!" They scramble, slipping on the frozen surface, breath quickening with the rush of fear. It's an echo of their growing anxiety, a physical embodiment of their psychological turmoil. In that moment, the ice of the Arctic reveals its true nature. It's treacherous, not solid, but alive. The crew stands, heartbeats racing, imagining the dark abyss beneath. One misstep and they could be swallowed whole. They retreat to their shelter, breathless and shaken. The landscape outside is both beautiful and horrific, a pure white expanse tainted by the reality of their situation. They are surrounded by an indifferent beauty. The contrast sharpens the despair. As night descends, sleep is a fleeting luxury, riddled with nightmares, of slipping through the ice, of losing comrades to the cold that gnaws away at them. The shadows play tricks, morphing into visions of their families. Each face is a fleeting memory, a reminder of warmth, laughter, and life beyond this wintry prison. "Do you think they'll come?" whispers James, a younger man with wide, hopeful eyes. "Do you think they still look for us?" Silence stretches between them, taut and heavy. No one answers. Deep inside, they all know the truth. Days bleed into weeks, and with each passing moment, the darkness grows thicker. The weight of their isolation threatens to crush them. It's a quiet madness, the mind turning inward, grappling with the impossibility of their situation. There's something hauntingly beautiful about the world around them, but it does little to stave off the despair. Morning comes reluctantly, muted light filtering through the ice. They peel themselves, from blankets that offer little comfort. The world feels etched in shades of monotony, a canvas splattered with grey and white. Suddenly, the rush to eat breakfast feels urgent. Rumbling stomachs speak louder than the gut-wrenching unease. They pass around the last of the broth, a thin liquid that barely warms the pit of their bellies. "What's next?" mutters Thomas, still looking out at the unyielding snow. "Do we hunt, or hope the ice holds long enough to send a message?" It's a tall order to assume they'll discover fresh meat. Their traps lay untouched, mocking reminders of their failures. From somewhere deep within, a voice whispers, "This is how it ends." The thought lingers, intrusive. Bitter winds howl louder today, a cacophony of despair that dances through the cracks in their shelter. It seeps into their souls. Perhaps it's the hunger, perhaps it's the chill, perhaps it's fate, reminding them no one is truly safe here. They gather again, this time, around a small fire. "If we don't catch something soon, it won't matter how long we last," John says, eyes flickering with desperation. "We must go deeper into the ice." It's an unspoken agreement that hangs heavy in the air. The deep uncertainty clouds their judgment. "You're talking madness," Henry replies, shaking his head. "What if we don't come back? Are we ready for that?" The weight of the decision rests on their shoulders. They know they can't stay idle. Each moment spent in inaction is another moment wasted. But what lies ahead? Unknown dangers lurking in the expanse of ice and snow. Underneath the surface, emotions bull beneath the cold. Trust erodes, faster than the flesh they all fear losing. The choice seems unavoidable. Into the unknown they must venture. But in the desolate darkness of their hearts, a chilling truth emerges. They are not just battling the elements. They are floundering against their own minds. As whispers of discontent rise, they stand again with choices that may seal their fates. Staring into the icy abyss, they feel the call of the horizon. The shadows are growing deeper, and time is against them. This can't end well. Can they endure the harshest grasp of winter's fury, or will they succumb to its icy embrace first? The snow continues to fall, burying their hopes deeper and deeper. They must make their move soon, or risk being lost to the freezing silence forever. What choices will they make? The stakes feel impossibly high. Chapter 5. Shifting Survivors, the Aftermath of Scurvy. The winter drags on, unforgiving and relentless. The Arctic sun barely breaches the horizon, casting a dim, ghostly glow on the desolate snow. Inside the confines of the McClure's ship, the air thickens with a smell that turns stomachs, sweat, sickness, and despair mingling in a sickly concoction. By spring 1851, cracks begin to show not just in morale, but in the crew's bodies. Scurvy creeps in silently, like a thief in the night. The first signs are subtle: a twinge in the gums, a creeping fatigue that pulls them down like an anchor. "Jerry," whispers Thomas, his voice barely rising above the other men's hushed murmurs. "Have you seen Adam? He looks pale. Is it just the cold?" Jerry glances sidelong at a stunted figure, shivering in the corner of the ship. Adam's shadowed eyes flicker with unspoken fear. The haunting question lingers there. How long until this becomes their fate? Outside, the wind moans. Through the rigging, a mournful sound. It seems to echo the worries that nestle deep in their hearts. The men huddle around a small, sputtering lamp, its flickering light casting ghostly shapes on their gaunt faces. Each shadow tells a story, of strength fading, hope waning. "Maybe if we could get fresh provisions," David's voice trails off, caught on the tide of pessimism that washes over the crew. They all know there's no land in sight, no haven of green to run to. Only more ice, more desolation. As the days slip into weeks, scurvy tightens its noose. The symptoms become violent and grotesque. First, there's bleeding, gums that swell and split, blood mingling with salt-laden tears. Then, the joints ache, a creeping numbness stealing their ability to move. "Damn it, Walter, you're not dying on me," shouts Thomas, his desperation flaring like a match. But Walter's eyes are distant, glassy. He scarcely nods. The once vibrant man now seems a spectre, devoured by the disease. Each cough that racks his body sends shivers of dread through the others. They know they are teetering on the edge of a dark precipice. Nighttime brings a chill deeper than the Arctic winds. It steals over the crew like a shroud, cloaking them in darkness and despair. Sounds echo eerily, soft groans, the crackle of ice, the creak of wood. "You think it'll get warmer?" Jerry asks, a bitter laugh escaping his lips at the absurdity. He looks around at the others, their hollow eyes reflecting the dim flame. What are we hoping for? A miracle? Days turn to weeks. The frostbite lays claim to fingers and toes, until the stark white becomes stained with a deep crimson that clings stubbornly. The men wince, bite back pain, mask their fear behind bravado. "Keep moving, lads," David commands, though his voice quivers with uncertainty. "We'll get through this." But hope is a frail thing now, flickering like the dying embers of their fire. It begins to wane, extinguished by their eroding health. Scurvy becomes a ghost that haunts them, reminding them they are prisoners of their own ambition. The rations must be stretched, again. Bitter sea biscuits, hard as rock, become their only sustenance. Their bodies scream for fresh greens, for anything that might stave off the creeping dread of decay. One day, a slight flicker of excitement fills the air. "What if we catch something?" Thomas suggests, eyes gleaming with adventure, a brief spark in the heavy gloom. The notion that survival could mean something more sends a shiver of hope through their bones. "Fishing?" Adam scoffs, but the glint in his eye betrays a hunger still alive. "With what? We can barely stand." They agree to try. It's something, at least. What follows is a grim joke. A few huddled men out on the ice, cracking through thin surfaces with what little they have. Fingers numb and aching, faces tight with cold. As the sun finally rises, higher in the sky, it reveals the extent of their battle. Pale bodies, bent and weak, working together in a last-ditch effort to reclaim a semblance of life. But the salt water brings visions of paradise, of green meadows and ripe fruits hanging from trees. a fleeting taste that only heightens their desperation. They catch nothing. Hours slip away, the cold gnawing at them, limbs heavy with fatigue. Back on the ship, the mood shifts. Tension simmers beneath the surface. Accusations, anger bubbling over in hushed conversations. Fingers point at each other for missteps, for the game of chance that seems rigged against them. "What'll we do when we run out?" Walter murmurs, a shadow of desperation colouring his words. "When it's just us? And no food?" Their shoulders slump under the weight of the question. Unspoken thoughts cling to the air, thick and oppressive. The truth hovers over them, like the encroaching frost, threatening to reveal the darkest parts of their souls. Days crawl by. They find a few scraps, discarded fish, the odd seabird, anything that doesn't exacerbate the sickening taste of decay. Survival becomes a grotesque competition. Walter's strength fades daily. Each glance reveals a ghost, each smile a shadow of what once was. "Stay strong, lads," he rasps, betraying his struggle, but the mighty promise behind his words feels shattered, lost to the winds. As supplies dwindle, they hold secretive meetings, whispering like conspirators plotting treason. "We can't last much longer," one murmurs, and the weight of that realization sinks deep into the bones of the men. One evening, as they gather their last resources, old grudges resurface. An argument erupts, voices carrying high in the dim space. "You're not making sense. We need to conserve every bit we have." Fingers are raised, old hatreds erupt anew as morale cracks, splintering apart as if the ship itself might give under the strain. Then it happens. A sudden, heart-stopping scream breaks through. It cuts the tension like a knife, freezing all movement. Their heads snap toward the source. Walter, collapsing, hands clutching at his throat. Panic erupts. "Get him up! Hurry!" They grapple with his body, the breath escaping him like the last gasps of their hope. As they fumble with desperation, it hits them. The horror isn't merely of the body. It's of the mind, too, twisting and turning into a nightmare of survival. In that merciless moment, they face the unthinkable. Who among them will endure? The smell of blood mingles with salt in the air, tainting their final moments of camaraderie. The echoes of life and death ripple through the frozen stillness. Walter's eyes flicker, searching the faces of his friends for solace as they watch. Then, with a final choked breath, darkness takes him. With a weighty silence, they stare into the abyss that yawns wide before them. The ghost of Scurvy laughs in the shadows, its grip tightening, its hold secure. And as they gather the pieces of their shattered hopes, a dark thought slides into their minds. What will they be willing to do next to survive? The ice creaks ominously beneath them, and the howling wind carries a promise of change, a tide of desperation, and perhaps a darkness they cannot escape. What horrors lie ahead as they grapple with life and death among the remnants of their shattered crew, wilting under the burden of their choices. The whisper of survival has never been so chilling. Chapter 6. The Breaking Point. Desperate Choices. The Arctic air bites at their lungs. Each breath is a frost-laden gasp, a reminder of their isolation. Out here, the world is a vast white desert, bordered by the grey sky lurking above. The sun barely rises, offering only a dim light that feels more like a taunt than a comfort. In the tent, the atmosphere hangs heavy with despair. The crew gathers around their dwindling food supplies, their eyes hollow, bodies weary. It's been days since they last tasted fresh meat. Their rations, lifelines now, dwindle by the moment. "We can stretch the pemmican a little longer," suggests Thomas Green, his voice cracking slightly. He runs a trembling hand over the leather pouch of dried meat, as if willing it to multiply. John Clark, lean and weathered, shakes his head. "We can't, not for long. If we ration it too much, we'll starve before help arrives." His gaze darts to the shadows beyond the flickering light of their makeshift fire. Around him, the men exchange troubled glances. They've been chasing after success, after discovery, but now success feels like an illusion. Each man grapples with his own dread, the silence punctuated only by the crackle of the fire, and the whispering wind outside, cold and unyielding. "We'll make it through," James Roberts murmurs, trying to instill hope. A hint of a smile hitches on his lips, but it falters, quickly. "We always have." But the others are unconvinced. The tension snaps as Richard Blake, always the optimist, suddenly pushes back his chair. "You're all thinking it. We're on borrowed time. If we don't make hard choices now, it'll cost us everything." His words hang in the air, laden with implication. The men shift uncomfortably. Blake's suggestion bleeds into their thoughts like ink in water, spreading dread. The air hangs, thickening. That night, hunger gnaws at their bellies, a relentless pang that engulfs reason. The wind howls outside, merging with the sound of muffled murmurs inside the tent. Conversations slip, turning circles around despair. "I say we look for seals," Green proposes. "There's got to be a thaw somewhere. We can't just sit here." "Seals," Blake scoffs. "We'll freeze to death first, and it'll be on your head. You want to gamble with our lives?" The men fade into silence, each pondering Blake's words. The thought of venturing into the icy void is terrifying, but so is waiting here, fading away like smoke. The next day the atmosphere shifts. An argument erupts like a thunderclap, severing the facade of camaraderie. Blake and Clark stand toe-to-toe, tension palpable. "You think it's easy?" Blake shouts, his cheeks flush against the cold. "We're already risking everything just to survive." Clark's response is low and deadly calm. "We'll risk more if we venture out. You're not thinking straight." His eyes blaze, holding a darkness that unsettles even the most hardened crew. The crew watches, their own tempers simmering just beneath the surface. Whispers of cracks in unity spiral through their minds. They can feel it, the strain, the degradation of trust. That night, sleep comes in fits and starts. The wind shrieks like a banshee outside, reminding them of their fragility. The scent of burning oil hangs stale in the air, mingling with something far more sinister. Despair, hunger, fear. By dawn, rations reach critical levels. A lump forms in Green's throat as he prepares breakfast, handfuls of frozen oats. There used to be laughter around the morning meal. Now, silence reigns. Starvation sits heavy on their shoulders. But something shifts. The crew decides to embark on a hunt for seals. Even though dread coils in their guts, desperation binds them together. They gather their meager gear, the sound of crunching icy ground underfoot adding a rhythm to their dread. Each step feels like a gamble. The looming threat of frostbite sends chills weaving through their fingers and toes. And yet, beneath the terror, a flicker of hope burgeons. They could turn the tide. They could survive. As they walk, Richard leads the pack, his breath visible, steaming in the chill. He turns back briefly. "Stick together, lads. We find a seal. We find life." Minutes stretch on, tension thick. The Arctic sprawls out, blank and featureless, a desolate landscape consumed by ghostly white. Their senses heighten. Every sound becomes amplified. The Arctic winds shriek, the crunch of ice, the crackle of snow beneath sturdy boots. Hours pass agonizingly. Their eyes dart across the horizon for any semblance of movement. It feels as if they've been swallowed by the wasteland around them. Suddenly, Blake's sharp intake of breath pierces the tension. "There!" He points towards a slight mound ahead, a seal lazily lounging on the ice. The men freeze, hearts racing. "It's now or never," Blake whispers, determination flooding his voice. Without waiting for approval, he begins to crouch, moving stealthily across the ice. As they creep closer, the world closes in around them. The lure of survival propels them, and desperate dreams fill their minds. They remind each other of what lies ahead, the promise of warmth, food, life. A collective breath holds as Blake unsheathes his knife, the metallic glint catching the weak light. The tension crystallizes, time stretching out painfully. As he closes in, the seal's head pops up. Panic flashes in its wide eyes. The crew barely has time to react. "Now!" Blake bellows, but the creature wriggles away, flinging snow and ice. The moment breaks. Chaos erupts. Shouts mingle with the wind as the men scramble. Desperation claws at them. The seal disappears into the icy depths, flippers kicking against the cold. "By God, no!" Clark yells, frustration boiling over. In a flurry of emotion, defeated, the crew pulls back, retreating to their tent. The crushing weight of hunger settles in again, unmistakable and brutal, replacing the meager hope with simmering resentment. Back inside, they look at one another, shame mixing with anger. The fire barely crackles now, the air stale and heavy. "We'll be dead soon if we keep this up," Green whispers, the words barely scraping past his cracked lips. Tension returns like an unwelcome visitor. Each man wrestles with despair, haunted by the choices they face. Later that night, with shadows deepening around them, a quiet voice breaks the silence. "What if we created more rations?" Roberts muses, a thought packaged in desperation. "Smaller portions." "How does that help?" Blake scoffs. "You think we can stretch nothing into something?" The atmosphere hangs thick as they contemplate the struggle ahead. Each moment splinters the delicate weave, binding them to the last vestiges of their sanity. But as the fire flickers brighter, a decision looms, one that will merge survival with sacrifice. And as they whisper their dark thoughts, the question remains: at what price will they hold on to life? The shadows creep closer, chilling the air and warming their deepest fears. In the chilling embrace of uncertainty, the crew stands on the edge of a precipice, desperate choices stretching ahead, like the endless Arctic ice. What will come next? The answer may carve paths darker than they dared to dream. Chapter 7. Signs of Hope. The Arrival of Spring. The air cracks with the bitter taste of winter's last breath, yet faintly, beneath the icy grip, there are whispers of change. It is April 1851, and the sun hangs lower in the sky, longer each day, painting the horizon with tentative strokes of warmth. The ice creaks and groans around the huddled ship, the HMS Investigator. Each sound echoes with promise, but also with dread. The crew stirs. They emerge from their cramped quarters like weary moths drawn to the light. Faces are gaunt, eyes rimmed with shadows. They breathe in deeply, the air heavy with the scent of melting snow. Henry, the ship's cook, stands on the frozen deck. He squints against the sun's glare, lips cracked and bleeding from the chill. "Boys," he calls, voice hoarse like gravel. "We might just see land soon. Ain't that something?" A few men murmur their agreement, though their hearts weigh heavy. They cling to this fragile hope like a lifeline. Days have blurred into weeks. The promise of spring feels more like a mirage than a reality. The edges of the ice start to soften. In the distance, water begins to appear, winking at them through the melting frost. The ship, stranded for far too long, creaks with anticipation. It is a longing, the stretched strings of hope that threaten to snap. "There's food to be found out there," grumbles Fletcher, his face a mask of worry. "But we ain't exactly hunters, are we?" The truth hangs in the air, thick and undeniable. The men, once sturdy explorers, are shadows of their former selves. Their bodies have betrayed them, fatigue gnawing at their limbs. Still, the urge to venture out is insatiable. The crew gathers by the rail, watching the thin band of blue water grow. David, a young sailor with a spark of resolve, glances down at his hands, raw and trembling from the cold. "Let's make a go of it," he says, lips curled in a desperate smile. "I'd rather face a bear than this endless ice." The others chuckle, a sound that feels foreign now, but it pulls them together. That laughter shines like a candle in the dark, flickering but alive. They begin to collect their rifles, their minds igniting with thoughts of salvation. Yet, as they prepare, the temperature drops suddenly, a sharp reminder that spring is still reluctant, still an uninvited guest. The next morning, a thick fog rolls in, wrapping the ship in a shroud of white. The world outside feels muffled, quiet, as if nature herself holds her breath. The men step onto the ice, the crunch of their boots echoing around them. It feels eerie. The landscape is familiar yet transformed, a ghostly visage of their previous explorations. They set off, hearts pounding with anticipation. Every sound, a distant crack of ice or the rustle of snow, turns their heads. The men scan the surroundings, my eyes darting, searching for any sign of life. "It's too quiet," mutters Fletcher, an unease creeping into his tone. At that moment, they spot something, a shadow flitting across the ice, disappearing behind a ridge. "Over there!" David's voice sharpens. "It could be a seal." They rush forward, adrenaline surging. It feels like liberation, like freedom. The prospect of fresh meat sends a thrill through them. But as they approach, the thrill morphs into confusion. Instead of a seal, they find nothing but a tattered piece of fabric caught on the jagged ice. "Damn it!" curses Henry, the euphoric moment evaporating. False alarm. They kneel. A grim silence ensues as they inspect the shredded remains. It's impossibly similar to the clothing worn by their comrades. Despair tugs at their hearts. How many men had no luck beyond this desolate place? "Let's move on," David says finally, more to himself than anyone else. They continue, and soon after, the fog begins to lift, revealing thin patches of exposed earth struggling to emerge from winter's grasp. The scent of damp soil fills the air, a smell strangely comforting, hinting at life beneath the ice. It pushes against the curtains of hopelessness that have clung to them for months. As they move further, Henry spots tracks in the melting snow. "Look! Animal signs!" he calls out, excitement bubbling up. Each track is a beacon, a trail that could lead to sustenance. "Let's follow them, but quietly," whispers Fletcher, shifting into a low crouch, instinctively attuned to their surroundings. The men tread lightly. The air is thick with tension, the kind that precedes discovery. As they bend and weave through the crags of ice, they feel a shared heartbeat. There is hope, perhaps foolhardy, but it propels them forward. Suddenly, a loud crack shatters the silence, followed by a deep rumble. Ice shifts beneath them. Panic surges, and they scramble back as a chasm splits open next to their feet. "Run!" David shouts, urgency igniting fear. They sprint away, every heartbeat drumming against the terror of their surroundings. The ice beneath them seems alive, shifting, threatening to consume them. They stop at a safe distance, breathless, tension coiling tight in their bodies. "It's shifting too fast," whispers Fletcher, his face pale. The prospect of hunger feels less daunting than the peril surrounding them. "So what now? We can't just go back empty-handed," Henry says, voice trembling. As they catch their collective breaths, the bleak reality sinks in. It is spring, but life here remains unforgiving. The men huddle together, the expanse of white stretching before them, stretching into the unknown. "Over there," David points again, this time with absolute clarity. Just beyond the crack, a small group of seals sunbathe on ice floating a few yards away. They are oblivious, serene. It is a moment stolen from the jaws of despair. "We can do this," David states, fire igniting again. "We need food." The moment hangs heavy, radiating determination. Each man glances at their rifles, weighing the precarious balance between survival and safety. They prepare to advance, but hesitate, the haunting memory of their last hunt fresh in their minds. "I'd say we wait for the wind to change," Fletcher interjects. That word, wait, sinks like lead in their hearts. But they take positions, eyes trained on the seals. The world around them blends into a surreal, vivid backdrop, the frosted air against their faces, the wavering light dancing across the surfaces of the ice. Time stretches agonizingly, and they can hear nothing save for the wind. Suddenly, there's a rustle, an unexpected noise. It twists the air into something electric. David's heart pounds as he glimpses a figure moving beyond the seals. A shadow slips into view, a larger creature, sleek and dark. "What?" Suddenly, it all clicks. The crew feels the weight of dread press upon their shoulders as they realize it isn't alone. The figure is a bear, emerging with purpose. "Back! Back!" Fletcher urges, panic rising. The men pull away, understanding that survival is fraught with danger. The thrill of hope mingles with an icy reality. This is the Arctic. Even as they retreat, they steal glances back. The pulse of uncertainty quickens within each man. They're surrounded by a paradox, hope on the cusp, yet danger lurking close. Will they be consumed by the relentless wild, or will they seize the fleeting opportunity for survival? As they make their retreat, a question echoes in the frozen silence. How many more dangers lie ahead? How many more chances to find sustenance before hope slinks back into the shadows? The answer remains just out of reach, cloaked in the fog and the shifting ice ahead. Chapter 8. The Final Struggle. Attempts to Escape. Summer has barely touched the frozen expanse of the Arctic in 1851, but the sun hangs high, casting long shadows across the ice. It glistens like shards of glass, sharp and treacherous. McClure stands at the edge of the camp, squinting into the distance, his breath visible in the chill air. "Today's the day," he murmurs under his breath, a mantra that feels more desperate than hopeful. The men around him shift uneasily, eyes darting to the horizon where the ice stretches endlessly, a white desert. They're hungry. The rations grow scant, and the cold gnaws at their bones. In the silence, only the sound of cracking ice fills the air, a constant reminder of their precarious situation. The men share hushed conversations. "How far do you think we are from the shore?" one asks. "Too far," another replies, voice low, as if speaking louder might shatter the fragile hope remaining amongst them. With grim determination, McClure gathers his small party, 5 men, worn and weary, each face etched with worry. They set off into the landscape, their boots crunching against the hard surface of the ice. Each step sends vibrations through the frozen ground, reverberating through the stillness. The sun beats down, oddly deceptive in its warmth. It paints the ice a slate blue, but beneath, the air remains bitter. The men shed layers of clothing, yet sweat breaks out on their brows, a cruel contrast to the biting chill that nips at their exposed skin. "Keep moving. We can't stop," McClure urges, his voice firm. The words barely carry over the sound of ice groaning underfoot. They quicken their pace, hearts racing with the fear of being swallowed by the relentless expanse. As they navigate the treacherous ice, McClure sketches a map in his mind, tracking the shape of the land, the flow of the pack ice. Each crack of ice underfoot resonates like an ominous heartbeat. He thinks of the sea as a beast, capricious, fierce, waiting for them to slip, to falter. Hours pass. Desolation wraps around them like a shroud. They encounter ridges, towering ice cliffs that rise menacingly, glistening in the harsh sunlight. Climbing becomes an ordeal, muscles protesting with every heave, every panting breath that leaves their cracked lips. "Just a bit further," McClure encourages. "Remember why we're here." Yet, the men exchange glances laden with doubt. Their eyes betray a simmering fear, an awareness that this venture may lead nowhere. Nearby, one man, Thompson, stumbles. He falls, hands sinking into the cold, unforgiving ice. McClure rushes to him. "Get up, Thompson. We can't afford to lose you," he snaps, fighting to mask his concern. There's a fleeting moment, a flicker of vulnerability, as Thompson locks eyes with McClure, the unspoken fear hanging between them. "Your leg," he gasps. McClure kneels, assessing the damage. The man's pant leg is torn. Blood seeps through the cloth, his skin pale against the stark backdrop. McClure grits his teeth. "You'll walk it off. We can't stay here." The ice is shifting. As Thompson struggles to rise, the creaking ice beneath them shifts ominously. A low groan echoes, reverberating like thunder. McClure's heart quickens. "We need to move," he shouts, urgency clawing at his throat. The group presses on, pushing through the biting wind, gritted teeth flashing as they traverse the jagged frozen terrain. The sinking sun casts an eerie glow, painting the scene in shades of grey and deepening uncertainty. The air grows thick with apprehension. Suddenly, a sharp crack pierces the stillness. Instinctively, they all stop, hearts pounding. The sound reverberates beneath their feet. "Stay together," McClure commands, his voice sharp. Eyes locked ahead, they take purposeful strides, aware that the ice may betray them at any moment. Thompson stumbles again, the blood from his wound seeping into the ice. "We can't." "Keep going," he gasps, puffing heavily, each breath coming in short bursts. "Come on, man, we're almost there." Another crew member fuels the small flame of hope, but the words feel hollow. The reality is bleak. Fatigue hangs heavy in the air. They press onward, yet every step feels like dragging stones. The landscape becomes surreal, an endless cycle of white noise, of crushing isolation. Glacial wind cuts through their clothes, a knife of ice against their weary skins. As they approach a ridge, the expedition's strength wanes. McClure senses it. The men glimpse at each other, tension crackling in the atmosphere. "We'll camp here for the night," he decides, though the thought of halting fills him with dread. The ice yields beneath their weight, and they gather as close as possible, huddled together, sharing warmth. "We can't stay," Thompson murmurs, his voice ragged. "We'll freeze." "No," McClure counters. "We'll plot our course come dawn. We need to rest." Lying under the vast Arctic sky, the cold seeps into their bones. The night unfurls like a dark curtain, heavy and suffocating. They listen as the wind howls, a banshee wail that chills their very souls. Sleep evades them, and visions of home dance in their minds, laced with shadows. Thoughts of family, laughter, safety, each man grappling with whispers of doubt and despair, fighting for breath against the rising tide of hopelessness. In the dark, McClure's eyes wander to the stars overhead, twinkling like distant ice shards. He wonders if they're watching him, if they know what he faces. Morning brings a biting wind that stings their face, but the sun rises with cold authority, casting long shadows that grip the ice. They pack quickly, the chill embedding itself into their very lives. Every breath burns, and food remains scarce, rationed with desperation. "Let's make for the next ridge. We can reach open water," McClure declares, voice steady but heart racing. Each step becomes a monumental task as they navigate the drifts. That shift beneath them, threatening to swallow them whole. The terrain becomes a labyrinth of ice and water pools, slush seeping into their boots. Every man pushes through, resolute yet trembling under the weight of fatigue. The cold seeps into their flesh, numbness creeping through their limbs. "We found something," one of his men shouts. McClure rushes to him, excitement flaring. The ice shifts ominously beneath them, but joy flickers for a moment. It's only a piece of driftwood, yet it feels like a treasure amidst their desolation. The men gather around it as if it bears hope. Laughter bubbles up, fragile and uncertain. "Let's get cooking," Thompson says, hoisting it up. The meal, meager but vital, simmers in their stomachs, lending brief warmth to their bodies. Yet, as they take a breath, the ice groans again, a warning rumbling deep within. They look at one another, anxiety creeping back into their hearts. "Keep moving," McClure insists, swallowing the dread that fills his chest. The cold pushes against them, gnawing deeper with every step. With one slip, Thompson's foot breaks through a seam in the ice. Panic erupts. "Help!" The cries pierce the air, shattering their brief moment of calm. "Grab him!" McClure roars, the urgency erupting in his chest. They scramble to lift him up, the monstrous chasm below yawning. At that moment, McClure knows. They are not just fighting the ice. They are battling despair, their own instincts whispering of doom around every corner. "Get out!" he commands, words sharp, a lifeline in the chaos. As they pull Thompson from the brink, the ice trembles beneath them, a reminder of their fragile reality. Every moment hangs in uncertainty. They rally forward, but hope feels far away, glimmering like distant stars in a cold sky. But something brews inside him. They are on the cusp of discovery, teetering between life and oblivion. Tonight they must decide. Will they turn back, or press on, deeper into the maw of the Arctic? As the sun sets, casting eerie shadows on the ice, McClure casts a glance toward the men he leads, their eyes haunted yet resolute. They stand at the edge of a decision, and just beyond the ridge, something stirs in the distance, a dark shape against the horizon. The final struggle awaits. Will it be deliverance or doom? Chapter 9. A Hard Decision, Abandoning the Investigator. The sun hangs low on the horizon, a pale orb struggling to pierce through the relentless grey, shrouding the Arctic sky. Ice crackles underneath men's boots, a sound that grows familiar, yet foreboding. It is the creaking of a ship that has become a floating prison, the investigator trapped in a frozen embrace. Captain Robert McClure stands at the bow, his breath forming icy clouds that disperse into the frigid air. He is a man weary, his face etched with lines deeper than the Arctic cracks around him. The expedition has stretched on for what seems like an eternity. Supplies run low. Morale ebbs like the tide he no longer sees. "McClure, what's the plan?" First Mate Edward Murphy's voice cuts through the stillness. A hint of desperation lurks beneath the surface, an undercurrent that no one dares to voice outright. "We can't stay here forever." The weight of Murphy's gaze presses on McClure. He knows the truth. The ship may become their tomb. The icy grip of winter holds tight, and supplies dwindle by the day. The crew huddles below deck, their laughter a brittle echo of earlier warmer days. Rations slide lower, and the whispered fears become sharper, more urgent. "Should we even contemplate leaving the investigator?" McClure murmurs, half to himself. He remembers the warmth of the hearth back home, the comfort of a simple meal shared with loved ones. Now, only cold and hunger exist, their claws digging deeper with each passing hour. Edward's face is pale, but his tone remains steady. "The overland route is dangerous, Captain. We could lose more men." The word men hangs in the air like a death knell. They all know what that means. Faces staring blankly into the void, hopes dashed against icy rocks. "You've said it yourself, Murphy. We'll die here if we stay." McClure's voice rises, a quiet rage boiling under the surface. "The ice is closing in. Our reports won't be sent home if we're all frozen like flies in amber." A gust of wind rattles the ship, sending a shiver through their bones. The temperature has plummeted. McClure's fingers begin to lose their feeling. He fists them to his sides, trying to conjure warmth through sheer will. Think of the journals." One of the younger sailors pipes up, his eyes shining with naive hope. "We've documented so much. Journals won't save you from freezing to death." McClure snaps, the impatience spilling over. He regrets the sharpness, but he can't afford to indulge fantasies. Not now. He paces, each step echoing against the wood. Each thud counts down the moments until he must decide. Should they venture into the unforgiving wilderness, or remain anchored to a sinking ship? It's a cruel calculus. Above the hull, the sun's pale warmth disappears entirely, leaving them cocooned in a frozen twilight. Snowflakes begin to swirl, delicate and deadly like a whisper of nature mocking their plight. The wind howls like a mournful spectre, and McClure can feel the cold seep into his bones. "What would you leave behind?" The question flits through his mind, uninvited and unsettling. The thought of abandoning the investigator feels like a betrayal. Yet the desire to survive quakes louder. He looks at his crew, their empty stares refusing to hide their fear. "Leave behind the ship, or leave behind our lives," he mutters, and his voice falters, an echo of the choices that haunt him. Murphy lays a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We can go, Captain. We just need to choose." His grip is firm, but leaves no warmth. There is fear in the uncertainty, but trust lingers too, a bond forged through months of hardship. Outside, the wind's growl deepens, as if the Arctic itself warns them against the danger of the unknown. What lies beyond the ice barricade? Glistening landscapes, waiting to swallow them whole. Or perhaps salvation in the form of land, ground beneath their frozen feet. The tantalizing thought flits past, just beyond reach. Longer we wait, the less likely we return, someone murmurs from the shadows. Who said it? McClure doesn't know. Their voices blend, an anxious murmur amidst the growing storm. Everyone feels it, the clock ticking down toward the inevitable. He glances back at the investigator, her once proud sails like the arms of a lover turned to stone. Loose boards creak under the weight of freezing tension. Each gust of wind feels like a harbinger of doom. Dress warm, McClure calls out suddenly. The decision is made. They must prepare. The urgency of the moment unfolds like a winter's bloom, sharp and beautiful, yet dangerous. We'll withdraw what we can carry and head overland at first light. Gather the essentials, he commands, stealing a glance at the rigging that shackles their fates to the ship. We take only what we need. His voice feels hollow, the words heavy with consequence. Abandoning the investigator means stepping into uncertainty. Do you want our journals? One sailor asks with desperate hope, clutching past records as if they're a lifeline. No, McClure's answer is firm, almost cruel. Not if it weighs us down. With that, the men disperse, confusion clouding their faces alongside resignation. They shuffle back toward the quarters, leaving McClure in a sea of solitude. Alone on the deck, he grips the rail, teeth chattering against the chill. His eyes scan the endless white horizon. It seems to taunt him, a cruel reminder of what they're about to forsake. The biting wind carries a scent, a mingling of salt and decay. The edge of despair creeps in, a shadow threatening to snuff out whatever flicker of hope remains. We might not return, he whispers into the void. What will they find beyond the ice? As night descends, the Arctic envelopes them in her cold embrace. The black sky stretches above, a backdrop for silent, swirling snow. McClure breathes in the deep cold and knows. This decision weighs heavier than anything else in his life. What lies ahead? Will they find safety, or has he sealed their fate? Unseen dangers stretch before him, each one more daunting than the last. The thought grips his heart, squeezing harder until he can barely breathe. Yet what choice is left? He turns away from the investigator, trembling inside and out. Survival beckons. But the haunting question lingers. What will become of the ship? What will remain of the dreams they once harbored? As the shadows lengthen, McClure feels the truth settle deep in his bones. There is no turning back. Tomorrow, the journey into the unknown begins. The ice closes around them, and as McClure faces the winter night ahead, the only thing echoing in his mind is a solitary, terrifying thought. Abandoning the investigator might just be the hardest decision he ever has to make. What? Other sacrifices loom just beyond the horizon. Chapter 10. Rescue and Return. The Bitter End. The morning sun breaks over the wintry expanse of the Arctic. It casts a pale glow on the ice and snow, a disorienting beauty that feels almost cruel. After nearly 2 years entombed in this frozen hell, McClure's crew has been found. The ship's sails flutter like the wings of caged birds as HMS Investigator arrives, a vision of salvation against the stark, icy backdrop. The sight is surreal. Men, gaunt and haunted, stand on the deck, eyes wide as if they cannot comprehend that help has finally come. Their breath forms clouds of steam, mist disappearing into the bitter wind. "By heavens, it's real," one man gasps, the words tinged with disbelief as he squints against the harsh light. Commander McClure, leaning heavily against the rail, feels a flicker of hope stirring within the depths of his frostbitten heart. But with that hope comes a pang of fear. What will await them back? Home? What have they become after all this time? Hunger gnaws at their insides like a ravenous beast, and the scent of stale rations clings to their clothes, intertwined with the sharp tang of ice. McClure's thoughts race back to the last desperate days spent on the ice floes. The memories are vivid. Empty bellies, the gnaw of cold in their bones, and laughter that stopped short at the edge of despair. "I thought I'd never see the land again," murmurs Joseph, a man once full of fire, now reduced to whispers. His eyes are sunken, yet they glimmer with a strange, hesitant joy. Voices erupt around the ship, men shouting. Joy mingles with disbelief. Longing stirs the air as they plan their return. But the thrill of rescue does little to erase the stark reality they carry within them. As they make their way to the investigators' cramped cabin, the immediate warmth envelops them. It's intoxicating, yet it does not banish the chill of memories buried deep. The thawed snow, beneath their boots, feels foreign, a bitter reminder of the frigid world they're leaving behind. "Tell me, did anyone find all the records?" McClure's voice trembles slightly as he speaks to his first mate, knowing full well the significance of their documentation. "They're safe, sir." The mate's response is swift, but it carries the weight of irony. What good are records when the torment of survival is etched into each surviving soul? Days pass in a blur of exhaustion and uneasy camaraderie. The crew feasts on the bounty offered by the investigator, a banquet of fresh rations, steaming and aromatic. Still, laughter is sparse, lingering like the frost beneath the surface. As they navigate the rugged northern sea back towards England, the crew grapples with their new reality. McClure stands at the bow, staring into the endless blue. The ocean churns beneath them, a mirror reflecting his turbulent thoughts. Every wave sends memories crashing back, the soot-stained faces of lost mates, the vast desolation that used to be hope. "What do we even tell them?" whispers Samuel, another crewmate, standing beside him. "They'll never understand what we've endured." McClure clenches his jaw, contemplating their return. Honor met defeat like the cold met the warmth. Would anyone believe that amidst their failure lay a tenacity, a spark that refused to fade? Moments of silence stretch. It's almost unbearable. They share a look, two men bound by an experience few can comprehend. Yet their return to civilization is not the triumphant return they envisioned. The dock in Portsmouth looms large but feels phantasmal. They step onto the familiar cobblestones, not as heroes but as ghosts. The stench of smoke from the ship's chimneys greets them, mingled with the earthy scent of damp wood and salt. People flood the pier, eyes alight with curiosity and perhaps pity. They crowd around the survivors, their gazes piercing. "Look at them, like shadows," a woman gasps, recoiling slightly as if struck. McClure hears their whispers. What did they find? What horrors? His heart sinks. They never speak about what those 2 years do to a man. The vast wilderness takes more than lives. It takes innocence. The crowd parts, and there stands a figure, tall and authoritative, Lord John Franklin's daughter, a woman whose expression betrays no emotion as she gazes at her father's legacy turned tragedy. "Commander McClure," she calls, her voice steady as ice. The words feel like a blade, cutting through the tumult around him. He forces himself to meet her eyes. You shouldn't have to see this." "I've seen it before," she replies tersely, her gaze unwavering. Men returning from the Arctic, changed, scarred. As her words echo in the air, the very existence of her statement reverberates through him. He glances around. Each man wrestles with the shifting tides of their own spirit. Their bodies are back, but their hearts linger, tethered to the desolate ice. Returning home, McClure learns quickly that the scars run deeper. The newspapers erupt with tales of their ordeal, each headline bold and unyielding, a retrospective of their so-called heroism. Yet every article misses the truth, reducing them to footnotes in a grand venture. "Expedition lost in the ice," screams one paper, glossing over the survival, the endurance. Day after day, the reports saturate the market square. Men in top hats tilt their heads in conversation, voices thick under the weight of gossip. Should we fear the Arctic, or celebrate their folly? "Aye, you think they were mad to approach such a place?" Another laughs uproariously, but they do not see McClure, the man behind the headlines. He turns away from the crowd. There's a bitterness mixed with something else, a grief for his crew littered throughout the Arctic wasteland, souls yet unclaimed. Madness lingers like a phantom pain in his chest. He clutches a letter in his hand, his wife, writing in the warm embrace of home, unaware of the dark abyss that had crept into her husband's heart. "My dearest," it begins, but he closes his eyes against the scalding ink. How can he write back? How do you tell someone you're home when you feel so dreadfully lost? Yet with every day, he hears the whispers deepen. Who will lead these explorations now? The question rolls through the corridors of power. As winter turns to spring, rumors swirl of new expeditions, men itching to conquer the icy frontier again. Yet McClure feels he has lost something irrevocable, the spirit of exploration. They say it lives through desire for discovery, but he knows desire can twist into obsession. "May I speak with you, Commander?" An officer approaches, glancing around cautiously, his voice low. "Speak," McClure replies, weary. "The Arctic still holds secrets," the officer says, and there's an urgency wrapped in his tone. "Rumors of new voyages to be launched. You might be called upon to lead again." A tightness grips McClure's chest. "You think I'd return?" he scoffs, though doubt nibbles at the edges of his resolve. The officer's gaze is steady. "What better way to prove your mettle? They need men who have tasted the ice. You've survived it. But can he survive it again?" As the officer departs, McClure lingers, weighing his choices. Outside, the cries of children playing fill the air, their laughter haunting. Will he answer the call of the ice again, or let the memories of frost and fear seal the door behind him? Only one truth remains clear. The Arctic holds a fierce grip on those touched by its cold, a grip that might never truly release. And with that thought, a question lingers like the last vestiges of a dream, slowly fading. What if the darkness calls him back? The answer hangs icy and unanswered, just like the endless Arctic itself. Legacy of the McClure Expedition. The icy grip of fate clings to the tail of the McClure Expedition. As the sun sets beneath the horizon of history, we are left pondering the shadows cast by these early adventurers. Each frozen moment they endured, each sacrifice etched into the ice, reverberates through time. Their story speaks in whispers of inspiration and caution, echoing across the vast white expanses they sought to conquer. What does it mean to venture into the unknown? The legacy of McClure and his crew is one of ambition shadowed by despair. They dared to unravel the mysteries of the Arctic, driven by the hope of discovery. Yet, the bitter cold bore witness to their failures and humanity's frailty. Their expedition became a haunting reminder of the thin line between exploration and recklessness. Many still trek these treacherous paths, tracing the footsteps of those lost to the ice. The lessons learned from McClure's journey burn bright, against the backdrop of human perseverance. We learn that the wilderness, while a canvas for daring discovery, can quickly morph into a merciless predator. Bitter winds and frigid seas are not mere obstacles. They are sentinels of nature's wrath, unyielding and indifferent to ambition. Despite the toll taken, the expedition revealed the intricacies of maritime navigation still studied today. The maps drawn from their harrowing endeavors served as vital knowledge for later navigators. The quest for the Northwest Passage ignited a flame that fueled fascination for generations, a flame that still flickers in the hearts of explorers. Yet, we cannot escape the shadows cast upon the ice. Lives were lost, souls frozen in time, their aspirations consumed by the biting winds, the echoes of their laughter, their dreams of glory, mingling with the howling gales, implores us to remember. They were men, not just explorers. They feared, hoped, and clung to life against chilling odds. In those desperate moments, a simple mutter could signify an unraveling. We may not return. Their legacy, then, is a dual-edged sword, the lessons of ambition tempered by the knowledge of loss. How many explorers have ventured forth, emboldened by dreams, only to find despair at the end of their journey? The cold truth is that each expedition into the great unknown carries the weight of those who came before. As we sit here, warmed by the glow of our own lives, let us not forget those who faced the unforgiving clutches of frost. The whispers of the McClure Expedition linger on the edges of our understanding, serving as a chilling reminder of both our limits and our boundless pursuits. If this history has left its mark on you, leave a like. It tells me you survived the journey. Drop a comment below. I want to know what part of this dark tale haunted you most. And brace yourself for the next step into the abyss, where we journey into the depths of another chilling chapter of the past, a tale of betrayal and ambition that shook an empire to its core.